I used to pride myself on noticing details until I realized I'd been missing the biggest one for months. My name is Mason, and I'm an IT project manager. Methodical by nature, analytical by profession, married to Diane for 4 years. 4 years that I thought were the best of my life. We met at a mutual friend's gallery opening, one of those pretentious downtown affairs where people drink wine and pretend to understand abstract art. I was nursing a beer in the corner, checking my phone, when Diane's laugh echoed across the room like music I'd never heard before. She was standing by a painting that looked like someone had thrown paint at a canvas, her head tilted back, genuinely delighted by something her friend Sarah had whispered. That laugh, uninhibited, joyful, completely unaware of how it lit up the entire space, made me abandon my usual caution and walk across the room to introduce myself. "Either you know something about art that I don't," I said, "or that painting just told you the world's best joke." She turned, and those green eyes sparkled with mischief. "Actually, Sarah was explaining how the artist used coffee grounds mixed with the paint," she replied with amusement. I was imagining ordering my morning espresso and the barista asking if I wanted it to go or abstract. We talked until the gallery closed, then moved to a coffee shop that stayed open late, then walked the downtown streets until sunrise painted the sky the same colors as that ridiculous painting. Our first date was dinner at an Italian place where we shared tiramisu, and she told me about her marketing career, her dreams of starting her own consulting firm. Our second date was a weekend getaway to wine country, where we held hands between vineyards and made plans that felt both terrifying and inevitable. The wedding was everything we'd dreamed, intimate ceremony in the botanical garden where she'd first said she loved me, reception under string lights that made her dress shimmer like starlight. We honeymooned in Santorini, watching sunsets from our cliffside suite while she planned our future with the same enthusiasm she brought to everything else. When we returned, Diane made a decision that surprised me. Despite having a promising career, she wanted to stay home and focus on building our home, as she put it. Eventually, she said, we'd start a family. I supported her completely. Why wouldn't I? I made good money, and seeing her happy, seeing her pour her energy into creating the life we'd talked about, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Our routine became sacred. I'd leave for work at 7:30 a.m., kissing her goodbye while she was still in her robe, coffee mug in hand. I'd return at 6 p.m. to the smell of dinner cooking and her stories about her day, yoga classes with the instructor who couldn't remember anyone's name, lunch with college friends who were all starting to have babies, home improvement projects that somehow always required multiple trips to Target. She'd greet me at the door with that same smile that had captivated me at the gallery, wanting to hear about my day, genuinely interested in the office politics and project deadlines that seemed mundane compared to her enthusiasm. We'd eat dinner by candlelight even on Tuesday nights because Diane believed ordinary moments deserved celebration. But here's the thing about being in IT. Your mind works in patterns. You notice anomalies. You see when something doesn't fit the established system. It started with the guest bedroom. We rarely used it except when her parents visited, which happened maybe twice a year. Diane had turned it into her hobby room. Yoga space, reading nook, storage for seasonal decorations. She was particular about that room, keeping it organized with an almost obsessive attention to detail, which is why I noticed when the sheets were fresh on a Tuesday. Diane always did laundry on Fridays, always. It was part of her routine, as reliable as her morning coffee or her evening glass of wine. She'd strip all the beds Friday morning, wash everything in one efficient cycle, and have it all folded and put away by dinner. She'd maintained this schedule religiously since our honeymoon, but there they were, crisp white sheets on the guest bed, hospital corners perfect, that faint smell of fabric softener still clinging to them. On a Tuesday, I mentioned it casually at dinner, cutting into the chicken she'd marinated with herbs from our garden. "Did you change the guest room sheets today?" She barely looked up from her wine, swirling the red liquid like it held secrets. "Oh, I spilled something," she answered quickly. "Changed them right away." The explanation was perfectly reasonable. Accidents happen. but something in her tone was just slightly off-pitch, like a guitar string tuned a fraction too tight. She delivered the words too quickly, too casually, like someone who'd rehearsed the line but couldn't quite nail the delivery. I told myself I was being paranoid. My analytical mind was finding patterns where none existed, seeing glitches in a system that was running perfectly. Diane had spilled something, changed the sheets, end of story. Except the feeling persisted, that low-frequency hum beneath my daily life, barely audible but impossible to ignore. Over the next few days, I found myself paying attention to details I'd never noticed before. The way Diane checked her phone more frequently, always angling the screen away from me. The practiced speed of her thumbs as they moved across the keyboard before she'd set it face down on the counter. How she'd suddenly developed the habit of taking her phone with her to the bathroom, something she'd never done before. Small things, insignificant things. Things that could all be explained away if I wanted to explain them away, but I didn't want to anymore. That night, I pretended to sleep. Beside me, Diane scrolled through her phone, the screen's glow painting her face in shades I didn't recognize anymore. When she finally smiled at something, a genuine, delighted smile that reached her eyes, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd made her smile like that. I started documenting everything, not because I wanted to, but because my mind wouldn't let me stop. 3 weeks after the first incident with the guest room sheets, my professional skills in data analysis and project management had turned inward. I was observing my own home like a compromised network I needed to secure, tracking anomalies with the same methodical precision I used to debug software systems. The evidence accumulated in patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't destroying my marriage. Fresh laundry appeared on Tuesdays and Thursdays, days when I had standing afternoon meetings that invariably ran long, budget reviews that stretched past 5, client calls with West Coast vendors that kept me at the office until 7. Diane knew my schedule better than I did. She'd helped me set up the calendar system, color-coded by priority and project type. The grocery bills showed purchases of craft beer, expensive IPA from a local brewery, the kind I'd discovered on one of our first dates and mentioned loving exactly once. But despite these regular purchases, our fridge never seemed to run low. I only drank beer on weekends, maybe 2 bottles while watching sports or grilling dinner. Yet every Thursday's grocery run included a 6-pack. Diane's girls' nights became more frequent, evolving from monthly catch-ups to weekly traditions. Every Friday now, always with the same vague details. Meeting Sarah and Jess downtown, she'd say. When I'd ask which restaurant or what time she'd be home, her answers were frustratingly imprecise. That new place near the theater district, she'd reply evasively. Or, probably late. You know how we get when we're catching up. One evening, feeling like I was losing my mind, I suggested joining them. I'd love to meet Sarah's new boyfriend, I proposed. Maybe we could make it a couples thing? Diane's response came too quickly, too defensively. It's our thing, babe, she said firmly. You'd be bored. We just talk about work drama and reality TV shows you hate. The paranoia was eating at me like acid. I'd catch myself analyzing every conversation, looking for tells, searching for the micro-expressions that might reveal deception. Was I being crazy? Was my analytical mind inventing conspiracies where none existed? The line between intuition and insanity felt razor-thin. I considered confronting Diane directly, sitting her down and asking the questions that kept me awake at night. But I realized that without proof, she could either gaslight me into believing I was paranoid or simply become more careful. If something was happening, I needed evidence. If nothing was happening, I needed to know that too. During my lunch break on a Wednesday, I researched discrete security systems on my work computer, careful to use incognito browsing and a VPN. I settled on wireless cameras with motion activation and cloud, storage, professional-grade equipment designed for small business, security but compact enough for home use. The purchase felt like a betrayal even as I justified it to myself. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and get therapy. If I'm right, I'll have proof. The cameras arrived in nondescript packaging from a generic electronics company. I hid them in my car trunk waiting for the right opportunity, my conscience and my suspicions warring with every passing day. That opportunity came on a Friday when Diane announced another girls' night. I watched her get ready with new eyes, noticing details I'd previously dismissed as normal self-care. Her makeup was more careful than usual, applied with the precision of someone who knew it would be closely examined. The black dress that hugged her curves, not one of our date night outfits, but something I'd only seen her wear once before to a work event where she'd mentioned feeling particularly confident. Her perfume was applied to pulse points with deliberate attention, wrists, behind her ears, the base of her throat. When she kissed me goodbye, I tasted her lipstick and felt nothing but a hollow ache where my trust used to be. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I moved with purpose. 4 hours. That's how long her girls' nights usually lasted. 4 hours to install a complete surveillance system in my own home. The installation was faster than I'd expected. Years of cable management at work had given me an eye for hiding wires and positioning devices for optimal coverage. Living room camera tucked behind a decorative plant. Kitchen unit nestled between cookbooks. Hallway device disguised as a smoke detector. And yes, one in the guest bedroom, positioned to capture the entire space while remaining completely invisible. Each camera synced to my phone with military precision. Feeds available through an encrypted app that would store everything in the cloud with timestamps and motion triggers. By the time Diane returned home, smelling of wine and cigarettes, though she'd never smoked a day in her life, I was on the couch watching television as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Diane slept beside me, her breathing steady and peaceful. My phone sat on the nightstand like a loaded gun. The cameras were live, recording, waiting. I'd crossed a line I could never uncross, violated the sacred trust of marriage in order to protect myself from its violation. The irony wasn't lost on me. For the next 5 days, I went about my normal routine with my phone as a constant weight in my pocket. I checked the feeds during coffee breaks and bathroom visits, watching empty rooms and ordinary domestic scenes that proved nothing except that my wife lived a normal life when I wasn't around. Then came Tuesday. I was in a budget review meeting, half listening to department heads argue about server maintenance costs when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m., deep into the afternoon slot when I was always, without exception, trapped in meetings. I excused myself to use the bathroom, my hands shaking as I opened the app. On my screen, I watched a man I'd never seen before walk into my home. He moved with casual confidence, using a key like he owned the place, heading straight to my kitchen where he grabbed a beer from my refrigerator, one of those expensive IPAs that never seemed to run out. And then Diane appeared in the frame. The way she touched him, her hand sliding along his arm, her body leaning into his space with familiar intimacy, told me everything I'd been too afraid to admit to myself. My manager is asking me something about Q4 projections, and I can't hear him over the sound of my pulse. I'm sitting in a conference room with fluorescent lights humming overhead and stale coffee growing cold in styrofoam cups, watching my marriage disintegrate on a 4-inch screen. The stranger, tall, dark hair, wearing the kind of casual confidence that comes from never having to question your place in the world, has made himself completely at home. He's not fumbling around looking for things. He knows where the glasses are, which drawer holds the bottle opener, how to work our temperamental ice maker. This isn't his first time here. Not even close. Diane enters the frame and everything about her body language transforms. Gone is the careful domesticity I've grown used to, the wife who greets me with dutiful kisses and asks about my day. This woman moves with fluid grace, comfortable in her own skin in a way I haven't seen in months. She slides into his arms like coming home. They don't rush into anything physical. That would almost be easier to bear. Raw lust, a moment of weakness, a mistake that spiraled out of control. Instead, they settle onto my couch with their drinks, her feet tucked under his thigh, fingers intertwined like this is their normal Tuesday afternoon routine. They're watching something on TV, my TV, with my Netflix account, and laughing together like old lovers who share inside jokes I'll never understand. The intimacy is devastating. This isn't just intimacy. It's a relationship. A whole separate life my wife has been living while I've been debugging network configurations and sitting through procurement meetings. Mason, my manager's voice cuts through the white noise in my head. Did you hear the question about the server upgrade timeline? I stammer something about a family emergency, grabbing my laptop and practically running from the room. My colleagues' concerned faces blur past as I rush to the elevator, to the parking garage, to my car where I can watch the feed without anyone asking if I'm okay. Because I'm not okay. I'm 40 minutes away from home, watching my wife touch another man's face with the tenderness I thought belonged to me. The drive becomes an exercise in controlled fury. At every red light, I check the feed obsessively. They're talking now, deep in conversation about something that makes her laugh. Really laugh. The same uninhibited sound that first drew me across that gallery 4 years ago. She brings him something to eat, and he catches her hand as she sets the plate down, pulling her closer for a kiss that's both casual and desperate. My wedding ring feels like it's burning a hole through my finger. But as the initial shock subsides, my analytical mind begins to function again. I could burst in right now, catch them in the act, force the confrontation that would end everything in screaming and tears and the kind of dramatic scene that would give me nothing but temporary satisfaction. Or I could turn this into something more strategic, something that gives me every advantage in the war that's about to begin. 10 minutes from home, I pull into a shopping center parking lot and force myself to think like the project manager I am. What's my objective here? Emotional satisfaction or total victory? The answer crystallizes with cold clarity. I want irrefutable evidence. I want documentation that will destroy her in divorce court. Testimony that will convince every mutual friend. Proof that will ensure she gets nothing. Not my house, not my savings, not even the sympathy of her own parents. I need her to bury herself deeper. On my phone, I watch Diane check the time, then grab her own phone. Is she tracking my location? When did she install that app? Her face changes, panic replacing contentment as she shows the screen to her lover. They both look around frantically. Where can he hide? The guest bedroom? No. Diane waves him away from there with urgent gestures. Too obvious, maybe. Or maybe she can't bear the thought of him in the place where she's been staging her fake domestic scenes. She points toward our bedroom, toward the master closet where I keep my work clothes and the suits we bought for wedding season. The irony is exquisite. The man who's been sleeping in my guest bed will now hide among my clothes like the guilty secret he is. I watch him disappear into the closet, then wait 5 more minutes, letting him settle into his hiding spot, letting Diane work herself into a state of controlled panic. She's pacing now, practicing her casual expression in the bathroom mirror, rehearsing her innocent wife performance. Then I drive home at exactly the speed limit, park in my usual spot, and unlock the door to find my wife transformed back into the woman I married. Mason! Her voice is too bright, pitched half an octave too high. You're home early. Is everything okay? Did something happen at work? I close the door slowly, hanging my keys on the hook with deliberate calm. Migraine, I answer, which isn't entirely a lie. Thought I'd come home and lie down. Oh no, she responds, moving toward me with exaggerated concern. Let me get you some ibuprofen. Or maybe we should go to urgent care? Sudden migraines can be serious. I just need to rest, I interrupt, watching her face for tells. Maybe lie down in our bedroom for a while. Her face goes pale. Actually, maybe the guest room would be better? She suggests desperately. The lighting is softer there, and I just changed the sheets. No, I say firmly, walking past her toward the hallway. Our bed is more comfortable. I settle onto the mattress, fully clothed, and pull out my phone. Opening the closet camera feed, I can see him in the darkness, eyes wide with terror, shirt already damp with sweat, pressed back among my hanging clothes like he's trying to disappear into the fabric. Diane hovers in the doorway, trapped between staying and fleeing, unable to do either without raising suspicion. You know, I say conversationally, not looking up from my phone. I might be here for a while. Maybe order dinner in. Really take the evening to recover. Her face drains of all remaining color. In the closet, through my phone screen, I watch her lover's expression shift from fear to desperation to something approaching genuine horror. And for the first time in months, I smile. Because finally, I'm the one in control. I've managed IT projects for years. I know how to wait out problems, how to extend deadlines, how to make time work for me instead of against me. Today, I'm managing the most important project of my life. Hour 1. I lie on the bed with practiced casualness, occasionally sighing for effect while scrolling through my phone. Diane hovers in the doorway like a trapped animal, offering water, suggesting urgent care, her voice climbing toward hysteria with each rejected proposal. "Maybe you should see a doctor," she says, wringing her hands. "Sudden onset migraines can be symptoms of—" "I'm fine," I interrupt, not looking up from my screen. "Just need to rest." On my phone, I'm watching the closet feed with dark fascination. The stranger stands rigid against the back wall, afraid to move, afraid to breathe too loudly. The closet is unventilated, designed for storage, not human habitation. Already I can see sweat beginning to darken his shirt. I screenshot the timestamp, 3:47 p.m., evidence logged, stored, backed up to 3 different cloud servers. Hour 2, Diane brings me ibuprofen and a glass of water with hands that shake visibly. I take them with theatrical gratitude, watching her struggle to maintain composure. "Have you eaten today?" I ask with genuine seeming concern. "You look pale." She can barely form words. I'm fine," she stammers. "Just worried about you." In the closet, the man has removed his jacket and loosened his collar. The space is maybe 3 feet wide, 8 feet long, built for clothes, not people. He's sitting now back against the wall, head in his hands. I note the body language of someone realizing they're trapped in hell of their own making. I send a quick message to Janet, the divorce lawyer I researched weeks ago when my suspicions first solidified. "Need to schedule consultation. Urgent. Have comprehensive video evidence." Her response arrives within minutes. "Available tomorrow 9 a.m., bringing documentation, I assume?" "Extensive documentation," I reply. Hour 3, I actually doze off, the emotional exhaustion finally overtaking adrenaline. When I wake, Diane is gone. I find her in the living room, pacing like a caged animal, phone clutched in her white-knuckled grip. She jumps when I appear, nearly dropping the device. "Just checking on you," she stammers. "Do you need anything? Food? More water?" "I'm fine," I respond. "Going to rest more." Back in the bedroom, the closet feed shows deterioration. The man's condition is worsening, shirt soaked through, face flushed from heat and poor ventilation. He's clearly suffering, gasping in the confined space like a fish pulled from water. For a moment, I feel something that might be pity. Then I remember him drinking my beer, kissing my wife, sleeping in the guest bed I paid for. The moment passes. Hour 4, Diane tries desperate measures now, suggesting restaurants for delivery, offering to pick up food herself, anything to get me out of the house. I decline each suggestion with the patience of a man who has all the time in the world. "You know what?" I say thoughtfully. "I think I'll just stay put. Really commit to recovering properly." She makes a sound like a wounded animal. I spend the hour documenting everything, building my case. Screenshots of timestamps, video clips stored with metadata intact. I research my state's divorce laws on my phone, noting that while we're technically no fault, documented adultery significantly affects spousal support calculations. My lawyer will be very pleased tomorrow morning. Hour 5. I watch a documentary about wildlife predators on my phone, volume low but audible. The narrator discusses hunting strategies, the patience required to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm watching a nature program about predator behavior while a human predator suffocates in my closet. Diane appears again, practically begging now. "Please, Mason," she pleads. "You've been in here for hours. This isn't normal for a migraine. We should really get you checked out." For a split second, looking at her desperate face, I almost feel guilty. Almost. Then I remember her secret smile at her phone screen. The smile that was never meant for me. Hour 6. The closet door creaks open. I'm ready. I've been ready for the past 30 minutes, positioned perfectly to see both the door and Diane's face when her world finally collapses. The man stumbles out like a drunk person, disoriented and gasping. His shirt is completely soaked through, hair matted with sweat, face flushed an unhealthy shade of red. He looks around wildly, clearly suffering from heat exhaustion, desperate for air and escape for exactly 1 second. The three of us exist in perfect silence, a tableau of disaster frozen in time. Then Diane's performance begins. Her scream could win awards. "Oh my God! Mason, there's someone in our house!" she shrieks. "Call 911. She stumbles backward, hand over her mouth, eyes wide with manufactured terror. How did he get in? Oh God, he must have been hiding there. "Mason, are you okay? Did he hurt you?" The acting would be impressive if I hadn't watched her rehearse it for 6 hours. "Really?" I stand slowly, my voice dry as desert sand. "That's fascinating, because I've been watching him hide in there for the past 6 hours. I hold up my phone, showing them both the closet feed with its damning timestamp. "And this is just one of several cameras I installed last week." The man's face confirms everything. The guilt, the horror, the dawning understanding that he's been caught in the most humiliating trap imaginable. When he tries to stammer something about breaking in, about forcing Diane, I laugh without any humor. "Try again," I say coldly. "I have footage of her letting you in with the spare key. Of you two on my couch, drinking my beer, touching each other like you've done this 100 times before." He looks to Diane for help, for explanation, for salvation. She offers none. I'm not a violent man by nature, but months of betrayal have built pressure like steam in a boiler. When I hit him, it's with surgical precision. One punch to the jaw that sends him sprawling, followed by 2 more that are purely therapeutic, releasing rage I've been carrying like poison in my bloodstream. He doesn't fight back. Can't, maybe, or won't. He crawls toward the door, whimpering, and I let him go. He's not the real target here. Never was. Diane cycles through her repertoire: tears, denial, blame-shifting, confession, desperate pleading, like someone testing passwords on a locked account. Each attempt more frantic than the last, each failure making her more desperate. I watch with the detached interest of a scientist observing a specimen. Finally, I interrupt her with 2 words: "Get out." My voice carries the finality of a tomb closing. "Pack whatever you can carry," I command. "Divorce papers will be at your parents' house by Friday." As she stumbles toward the door, suitcase hastily packed with shaking hands, she tries one final gambit. "Mason, please," she begs. "We can work through this." It didn't mean anything. I don't even look up from my phone, where I'm already composing emails to my lawyer, to her parents, to the network of friends who deserve to know the truth. It meant everything, I say quietly, and now it's over. As her car pulls away, toward where, I don't care, I stand in my doorway and feel something unexpected. Nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a hollow space where 4 years of my life used to be. Tomorrow, I'll fill that space with lawyers and paperwork. Tonight, I'm changing the locks. Janet's office smells like leather and expensive coffee. She's reviewing my evidence with the focused intensity of a surgeon examining X-rays, occasionally pausing to make notes in her legal pad. Every few seconds, she nods approvingly, and I watch my marriage transform into a legal strategy. "This is about as airtight as evidence gets," she says finally, closing her laptop. "While our state follows no-fault divorce laws, documented adultery significantly impacts spousal support calculations. Your wife has no recent employment history, no independent income, and now irrefutable proof of marital misconduct." Janet outlines the strategy with clinical precision. I keep the house, which I'd purchased before our marriage and maintained in my name alone. The majority of our combined savings stays with me. Diane contributed nothing during our marriage, living entirely off my income. My retirement accounts remain untouched. She gets minimal temporary support. 6 months of basic living expenses, enough to secure housing and find employment, nothing more. "The video documentation shows premeditation," Janet explains. "This wasn't a moment of weakness or a brief affair. The pattern of Tuesday and Thursday encounters, coordinated around your known schedule, demonstrates calculated deception over an extended period." Before leaving her office, I send the video evidence to Diane's parents with a simple message. "I'm sorry you have to see this, But you deserve to know why I'm divorcing your daughter. Their response comes within the hour. A phone call from Diane's father, his voice thick with shame and fury directed entirely at his daughter. "Mason," he says heavily, "I don't know what to say. We raised her better than this. We thought we did anyway." Richard and Carol had always embraced me as the son they'd never had. Richard would corner me at family gatherings to discuss baseball statistics and investment strategies. Carol would send me care packages when I worked late projects, worried I wasn't eating properly. They'd seen me as stable, successful, the kind of man who'd treasure their daughter. The betrayal feels personal to them, too. "We won't be providing her a place to stay," Richard continues. "She needs to face the consequences of her choices like an adult. I just wanted you to know. This doesn't reflect how we raised her. And we're sorry, deeply sorry." The divorce proceeds with surprising speed. Diane's lawyer, paid from her meager settlement, makes half-hearted attempts to argue for more generous support. They claim she sacrificed career opportunities for our marriage, deserves compensation for her contributions as a homemaker, should receive significant alimony given the lifestyle I'd provided. Janet dismantles these arguments like a controlled demolition. She presents the timeline of the affair, established through pattern analysis of the surveillance footage, grocery receipts, and calendar data showing the correlation between my late meetings and Diane's activities. The premeditation, the calculated nature of the deception, the deliberate exploitation of my work schedule to facilitate her affair. It all paints a picture of someone who viewed marriage as a convenience rather than a commitment. The social fallout spreads through our network with surgical precision. Mutual friends learn the truth through various channels, some through whispered conversations, others because I quietly share my story when asked about the divorce. The evidence is so overwhelming that even Diane's closest supporters find themselves unable to defend her actions. The affair partner has vanished completely, apparently uninterested in supporting Diane now that secrecy is no longer possible. According to Sarah, who reaches out to apologize for unknowingly providing cover stories, he was married himself, with 2 young children and a wife who's now also filing for divorce. Diane's parents maintain their position, refusing to let her return to their home. "She's 38 years old," Richard tells anyone who asks. Time she learned that actions have consequences. The final hearing is anticlimactic. Diane appears gaunt, her legal representation going through motions they know are futile. When the judge signs the decree, I feel a weight lift that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Not just freedom from the marriage, but liberation from the uncertainty, the paranoid checking of security feeds, the constant analysis of every interaction for signs of deception. I keep the house but change everything that might trigger memories. New locks, fresh paint in the guest bedroom, different brand of beer in the refrigerator. The surveillance cameras are removed and donated to a local nonprofit that helps domestic violence victims secure their homes. 6 months later, I start therapy. Not because I feel broken, but because I want to understand how I missed the signs for so long. How to trust my instincts without becoming paranoid. How to rebuild the capacity for intimacy without sacrificing self-protection. The therapist, Dr. Sarah Weinberg, helps me understand that Diane's betrayal wasn't a verdict on my worth as a husband. Some people are simply incapable of honesty, commitment, or genuine intimacy. My analytical nature, the trait that eventually exposed her deception, isn't a flaw to overcome but a strength to balance with emotional awareness. I begin dating casually. Coffee meetings, dinner conversations. The gradual process of learning to trust again. Rachel, a graphic designer I meet at a bookstore coffee shop, makes me laugh in a way I'd forgotten was possible. She's upfront about her own divorce 2 years prior, honest about her caution, willing to take things slowly while we both navigate the complicated process of building something real on the foundation of previous betrayals. The last information I receive about Diane comes through Sarah, who mentions seeing her at a retail job in a city 2 hours away. Studio apartment, entry-level position, living a life stripped of the comfort and security she'd taken for granted while married to me. I feel no triumph in this information, just a sad confirmation that choices carry consequences, That the life she'd risked for secret Tuesday afternoons wasn't worth the one she'd lost. Rachel asks me sometimes if I'm really over it, over her. I tell her the truth. I'm not over the betrayal, but I'm through with the pain. There's a difference, and it's one I'm learning to live with. The past happened. The future is something I'm building, one honest conversation at a time. I sold the house last month, not because I couldn't afford it and not because the memories haunted me, but because I was ready for something new. 2 years after the divorce was finalized, I've moved into a downtown loft with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows that flood the space with natural light. It's minimalist in a way that feels intentional rather than empty, modern without being sterile. Nothing here carries the weight of my past. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelves, every photograph on the walls was chosen by the person I've become, not the person I used to be. Rachel and I are talking about moving in together, cautiously, honestly, with the kind of careful planning that comes from having learned hard lessons about trust and partnership. She appreciates my analytical nature without feeling threatened by it, meets my residual caution with patience, born of her own experience with betrayal and recovery. Therapy helped me understand that my observational skills, the trait that ultimately saved me from years of deception, also sometimes kept me at arm's length from my own emotions. I've learned to balance vigilance with vulnerability, to be protective without being controlling. It's ongoing work, the kind of personal development that doesn't have a finish line, only daily choices to remain open while staying wise. I heard about Diane one final time last month. She's apparently engaged to someone new, working her way up to assistant manager at the retail chain, rebuilding a life from the ashes of her own making. When Rachel asked if the news bothered me, I realized with some surprise that it didn't. Not from bitterness or indifference born of anger, but from genuine emotional neutrality. That chapter of my life is closed, filed away with the kind of finality that comes from complete resolution. This morning, I'm sitting in a coffee shop downtown, waiting for Rachel to meet me for brunch. The sun streams through windows that could use cleaning, casting long shadows across worn wooden tables where other couples share newspapers and inside jokes. I watch them without suspicion, without the need to analyze or evaluate or search for signs of deception. Just presence, just possibility. 2 years ago, I would have been cataloging micro-expressions, noting who checks their phones and how often, building profiles and looking for patterns that might indicate infidelity. Today, I'm simply enjoying the warmth of sunlight on my shoulders and the anticipation of seeing the woman I'm learning to love without fear. I used to pride myself on noticing details. Now I pride myself on knowing which details actually matter. And in this moment, with Rachel's laughter approaching from the sidewalk and our weekend stretching ahead with its unscheduled possibilities, the details that matter are all right here. The past taught me hard lessons about truth and consequences, about the price of misplaced trust and the value of authentic connection. But the past is gone. What remains is this: morning coffee and comfortable silence, honest conversations about difficult subjects, and the daily choice to build something real with someone who values honesty as much as I do. I close my laptop, finish my coffee, and stand to greet the future walking toward me with a smile that's meant for me and no one else. That's enough. More than enough. It's everything.